Chapter 1 Who dares to touch my sister? Qing City, the Ye family, the ancestral shrine. The ancestors are watching. Ye Xuan has no talent or virtue. From this moment on, Ye Xuan will be deposed, and Ye Lang will succeed him as the heir apparent. An old man in a black robe said. Not far behind the old man stood a teenager with a slight smile hanging on his mouth. He was Ye Lang. People on both sides were the elders of Ye's manor. Why? Just then, a timid sound rose suddenly in the ancestral shrine. Following the voice, everyone saw a little girl standing at the door. This little girl was about 12 or 13 years old, and her two small hands clenched the corner of the skirt. Her face was a little pale and morbid. She seemed a bit fragile, and there was a trace of nervousness in her eyes. This little girl named Ye Ling was Ye Xuan's blood sister. She heard the family was going to depose Ye Xuan, so she rushed here regardless of her illness. The old man in a black robe frowned and said, Ye Ling, what are you doing? The little girl named Ye Ling gave a little salute to everyone in the ancestral shrine and said timidly, Great Elder, my brother Ye Xuan is the heir apparent. Why do you want to depose him? The great elder glanced at Ye Ling coldly. This is a family event. Why do you interrupt? Go away. Ye Ling was obviously a little frightened. She did not dare to look directly at the great elder, but she did not leave. She took the courage to walk into the ancestral shrine. Once again, she gave a little salute to the elders on both sides. Elders, my brother is now vying with the Li family for the mining rights in Nanshan. He risks his life for the family, and his well-being is unknown. However, the family has deposed his heir apparent title at this time. It is really unfair. How dare you? The great elder suddenly became angry and said, Whether we depose him or not, it's not your place to comment, you wench. Somebody, come and drag her away. At this point, the new heir apparent suddenly smiled and said, She should be punished by flogging 30 times as a warning to others. The great elder said coldly, Then give her 30 floggings. Soon, 2 guards in Ye's manor rushed in. Ye Ling held her hands tightly and said angrily, It's unfair, my brother has gone through so many trials for the family for so many years. Even at this very moment, he is fighting desperately for the family. But the family is so unfair to him. One of the guards glanced at the new heir apparent Ye Lang, and he knew that his chance was here. The guard smiled coldly. Child Ye Lang's inheritance of the heir apparent is welcomed by the general public. With this, he raised his hand and slapped Ye Ling in the face. Pa! There was a clear sound of a slap, and Ye Ling's right cheek instantly became red and swollen. But she did not cry, she just covered her cheek tightly. Ye Lang looked the guard over. He smiled and asked, What is your name? The guard gave a salute promptly. I am Zhang Mu. Greetings, heir apparent. Ye Lang nodded, You are very good. When I become the heir apparent, I will need 10 bodyguards, and you will be one of them. Hearing this, Zhang Mu was overjoyed and immediately made a profound salute. I will go through anything for you, and I am willing to risk any danger to do my duty for you, heir apparent. Ye Lang nodded slightly. Take her away. This person disturbed the ancestral shrine. Don't be lenient, do you understand? Zhang Mu looked at Ye Lang and saw the killing intent in the eyes of Ye Lang and understood. He instantly grabbed Ye Ling by her hair and dragged her out. At this moment, Zhang Mu suddenly stopped when he saw something. In the ancestral shrine, people turned their heads one after another to look outside. Not far from the shrine, a teenager was walking to the ancestral shrine. He wore a tight long robe which was tattered, and there was blood everywhere. The person who came was exactly Ye Xuan, who had hurried back from Nanshan. Seeing Ye Xuan, a cold smile appeared at the corner of Ye Lang's mouth. In the ancestral shrine, the elders all frowned. The great elder's eyes slightly narrowed, and his gloomy face looked horrible. No one knew what he was thinking about. In the distance, when Ye Xuan saw Ye Ling, who was dragged by Zhang Mu in hand, his face instantly became ferocious. "Who gave you the courage to touch my sister, you piece of shit?" When Zhang Mu saw Ye Xuan, his face suddenly changed. He quickly looked at Ye Lang and was about to talk, but at this moment, Ye Xuan jumped in front of him all of a sudden like a tiger. Before Zhang Mu could react, Ye Xuan punched him in the face. Bang! Zhang Mu's head felt a fit of dizziness, his whole body staggered and fell down. But Ye Xuan did not stop as he once again rushed toward Zhang Mu. At this time, Ye Lang, who was inside the ancestral shrine, suddenly bellowed in anger, "Ye Xuan, he is my man, you dare." Ye Xuan suddenly stepped on the chest of Zhang Mu. Puff! Zhang Mu spewed a mouthful of blood immediately. Seeing this scene, Ye Lang's face became incomparably ugly. But Ye Xuan just looked up at him and said fiercely, "Your man?" With this, he slammed his foot on Zhang Mu's face. Zhang Mu's entire face was badly disfigured, and he was whining incessantly, "Heir apparent, save me." Ye Xuan ignored Zhang Mu, who moaned for help, and went to Ye Ling. Seeing Ye Ling's appearance, Ye Xuan suddenly felt as if a knife were piercing his heart. He clenched his hands and his whole body was slightly shaking. When Ye Ling saw Ye Xuan, the tears in her eyes poured out suddenly. "Brother, it hurts. Hearing her, Ye Xuan looked ferocious. The next moment, he rushed to Zhang Mu's front and then trampled on his head in a fury. Bang! Zhang Mu's head hit against the stone steps and instantly burst open, his blood splattering. Seeing this scene, everyone on the spot was stunned. However, Ye Xuan did not stop. He suddenly looked at Ye Lang vehemently. "My sister is not someone you can touch. Fuck your ancestors." Saying this, he rushed straight toward Ye Lang. Inside the ancestral shrine, the great elder's face changed. "How dare you!" After he finished, he stepped hard on the ground with the tip of his toes. His whole body directly sliding towards Ye Xuan, and then he sent a slap toward Ye Xuan. His palm wind was strong, swift, and fierce. Ye Xuan's mouth corners showed a hint of ferociousness. His right hand clenched into a fist, and in a split second, his right sleeve was torn apart. The next moment, he punched the great elder's fist. Pum! The fists smashed together, and an explosion suddenly sounded. Ye Xuan retreated to the door and the great elder also stepped back several steps. Seeing this scene, everyone was shocked. In Qingzhou, warriors were divided into several ranks of realms. The first rank was the physical exercising realm, the second was the strength-enhancing realm, the third was the internal force reinforcing realm, the fourth was the internal-external refining realm, the fifth was the self-striving realm, the sixth was the qi-varying realm, and then above these was the qi-harnessing realm. The great elder was in the real qi-varying realm, while Ye Xuan was just in the fifth self-striving realm, with a gap of 2 realms from the great elder. However, Ye Xuan was only slightly weaker. The great elder was also frightened. He knew that Ye Xuan was very talented and was a well-trained heir apparent of Ye's manor, and that Ye Xuan had been fighting for the Ye family all year round. However, he did not think that Ye Xuan's fighting capacity was so strong. His wings are hard. Thinking about this, the killing intent deep inside his eyes was even more intense. The great elder stared steadily at Ye Xuan. "Ye Xuan, how dare you attack the heir apparent in public?" Ye Xuan's eyebrows were a little wrinkly. "The heir apparent?" The great elder sneered and said, "Ye Xuan, I forgot to tell you. Your heir apparent title has been deposed. From now on, Ye Lang is the heir apparent of the Ye family." Ye Xuan's eyes narrowed. "I have been deposed of the title of the heir apparent?" The great elder said coldly, "This is the unanimous decision of our elders." Ye Xuan smiled and said fiercely, "I exerted all my strength to fight out there, while you depose of my heir apparent title in here?" The great elder sneered. He pointed to Ye Lang, who was not far away, and asked, "Do you know who he is?" Without waiting for Ye Xuan's answer, he said again, "Ye Lang is the chosen one who has just awakened." Ye Xuan was startled. Who was the chosen one? The so-called chosen one was the one chosen by God. In the whole Qingcheng world, there was such a group of people. They might be plain and ordinary when they were young, but one day, they would suddenly awake. After the awakening, they were like a changed man. Not only would their cultivation speed be doubled, but there would be countless adventures and opportunities. They were like the celestial favorites. The Qingcheng world was divided into 3 continents. He was in the Qing continent, where there were hundreds of large and small countries. He was now in Jiang country. For decades, there were less than 10 chosen ones in Jiang country, and they all became giants in their regions after. Ye Xuan slowly clenched. He knew that the Ye family was going to give him up. Not just give him up, but they might also kill him. At this moment, Ye Lang suddenly smiled. "Elders, Ye Xuan killed a man in public and fought with the great elder, according to the regulations of the clan. How should you deal with him?" At the scene, everyone was looking at Ye Lang, and Ye Lang smiled coldly. According to the regulations of the clan, he should be flogged to death, shouldn't he? The elders on the scene all nodded to express their approval. Ye Lang was the chosen one and also the grandson of the great elder. They would naturally not offend Ye Lang and the great elder at this time. The great elder took a cold look at Ye Xuan. "Somebody come." In no time, there appeared dozens of guards of Ye's manor outside the ancestral shrine. At this moment, Ye Xuan suddenly said, "In the Ye's manor, there is a rule: in order to convince the public, the heir apparent must not refuse any challenge that comes from the younger generation of the Ye family." As he said this, he looked directly at that Ye Lang. "I challenge you." Ye Lang's eyes narrowed and smiled. "Challenge? Yes, but we have to go up onto the life and death platform. Do you dare?" The life and death platform. The people in the scene burst into an uproar. Within the Ye family, once their own people had irreconcilable contradictions, they could go to the life and death platform. Once they were on the life and death platform, they took sole responsibility for their survival. Ye Xuan sneered, "Yes, go to the life and death platform." But Ye Lang shook his head. "A month later, you and I will go to life and death platform to determine who lives and who dies. At that time, the patriarch will have just come out of his secluded meditation. You and I can fight to the death, and he can be our witness, lest they say that we sabotage you." Ye Xuan thought about it and said, "Okay." After that, he did not say anything. He picked Ye Ling up and walked out of the ancestral shrine. Watching Ye Xuan leave with his sister, the great elder looked at Ye Lang. He has been fighting with people all year round outside, so his fighting capacity is very good. Are you sure? A cold smile appeared at the corner of Ye Lang's mouth, and the killing intent in his eyes was real. "I just woke up, so my soul has not yet fully integrated with this human body. Otherwise, pinching him dead would be as simple as pinching an ant. After a month, I will have no opponents in this Qing city." Hearing these words, the great elder nodded slightly and smiled. "This is good." After that, he looked at an elder next to him and whispered, "The person I sent to Nanshan hasn't come back," and I saw that Ye Xuan's face was pale, which was a bit abnormal. "Ye Ku, you go and find out what had happened to Ye Xuan in Nanshan." The elder nodded and turned away. Holding Ye Ling, Ye Xuan returned to the room in his courtyard. He gently placed Ye Ling on the bed and then massaged Ye Ling's puffy cheek. He said softly, "Is it painful?" Ye Ling wiped the tears on her cheeks. "No, it doesn't hurt." "Brother, why do they depose of your heir apparent title? You have thrown your heart and soul into the family. Why is Ye Lang the chosen one and you are deposed? This is unfair." Ye Xuan shook his head. He gently rubbed Ye Ling's red and swollen cheeks. There is no fairness or unfairness. This time, it is my incompetence that I couldn't protect you from being beaten. Ye Ling shook her head, and the tears in her eyes flowed out again. No, it's me who is useless. I can't help my brother. I only slow you down. Ye Xuan smiled slightly, then he gently scraped Ye Ling's little nose. Stupid, I am your brother. The brother protects the sister, and it's perfectly justified, do you understand? Ye Ling got up and kissed Ye Xuan's forehead gently, and she said seriously, Brother, when I get well, I will cultivate too in the future and protect you. Ye Xuan smiled. He gently rubbed Ye Ling's head. Well, I will cure your illness. Rest first. It's late. Ye Ling nodded and said, I want to listen to a story. Ye Xuan smiled and said, a long time ago, there was a mountain. On the mountain there was a temple. In the temple there was. Ye Lingbai rolled her eyes at Ye Xuan. Brother, you have told me this story for many years. However, I like listening. After half an hour, Ye Ling fell asleep in the bed. After Ye Xuan tucked Ye Ling in, he sat on the floor next to her. He slightly opened his robe. On his abdomen, there was a long scar which was still bleeding. In order to win that mine, he had a bloody fight with the Li family. But then in a moment of carelessness, he was sneak attacked by a mysterious man. Although he killed his opponent, the man's knife was also inserted into his elixir field, so that his elixir field had been smashed. My elixir field was smashed. Ye Xuan slowly closed his eyes. This meant that he could only cultivate his human body, and he could never reach the sixth stage, the Qi varying realm, to refine his Qi. Being unable to cultivate was just a secondary issue. Ye Xuan glanced at Ye Ling in the bed, and her face was still pale. She was covered with 3 quilts. Even so, she still felt very cold. Typhoid fever. Ye Ling had been attacked by the cold when she was young, so her body was weak all year round. If it were not for the fact that he tried very hard to become the heir apparent and made countless contributions to the Yi family so that they provided her with herbal diet and Dan pills every month, she would have been long gone. Ye Xuan's right hand slowly gripped tight. Now that I am not the heir apparent anymore, will the Yi family still provide the herbs and Dan pills for Ye Ling every month? Moreover, there is a sign that Ye Ling's disease has become more and more serious. If I want to cure her, the only way is to go to Tsangmu College in the capital of Jiang Country, because the best doctors of Jiang Country are in there. If I want to go to Tsangmu College, I need to reach the Qi harnessing realm before the age of 18. Originally, I had the opportunity because I still have 6 months before I turn 19 years old. However, now that my elixir field is broken, it is almost impossible for me to achieve the Qi harnessing realm. Thinking of this, Ye Xuan turned to look at Ye Ling, who had fallen into a dream in her sleep. No matter what it takes, brother must cure you. After a while, he seemed to think of something such that he took out a black ring from his arms. This ring was left by his mother. His impression of that woman was vague because she left when he was 10. At that time, at the back door of the Ye's manor, that woman held him tightly, and her tears continued to flow. Not far behind the woman, stood a middle-aged man wearing a black robe. In fact, the man was not standing, he was floating. In his impression, the man just said one sentence, "Miss, if you don't go, and the patriarch knows the existence of the child, the patriarch will be angry. This may lead to a catastrophe of this world that even the child could barely live." Hearing the man's words, the woman gently pushed him away, and then quietly put the ring into his arms. "Xuaner, take care of Linger, take care of yourself. Don't hate your mother." After saying this, the woman turned and left with the black-robed man. He stayed for a while, and then went after them like crazy. But unfortunately, he did not catch up, because the black-robed man and the woman were flying. In that case, He kept chasing and chasing until he could chase no more. But that woman did not look back, and she disappeared at the end of the sky just like that black-robed man. After a while, Ye Xuan retracted his thoughts. He held the ring tightly in his right hand. He had a wound in his right hand so that at this moment, the wound broke open, and a drop of blood suddenly dripped on that black ring. The ring in his hand suddenly trembled. Ye Xuan was shocked. He quickly looked down at the ring in his hand. At the moment he bowed his head, the ring suddenly turned into a black light and fell into his eyebrows. Instantly, Ye Xuan disappeared. When he appeared again, he was already in a piece of an endless starry sky. Not far from him, there was a black tall tower suspended. The tall tower had 12 floors, and it was just suspending there. The tall tower was locked by 4 huge black chains as thick as the pillar, and at the top of that tower, there were 3 swords inserted. The whole tower was dark and gloomy. Ye Xuan suppressed the shock in his heart. He looked at the top of the first floor's entrance. There were 2 big blood-red characters, Prison World. On both sides of the door, there were 2 lines of blood-red characters, just like a couplet. On the left, imprisoned the sky, imprisoned the earth, imprisoned the gods and the devils in all the heavens. On the right, forbidden the Tao, forbidden the fate, forbidden the immortals and the humans in all the worlds.